The heroine, Lillian, is excellent, but her husband, Daniel, is an older bald man. After 10 years of being a housewife, Lillian enters a period of emotional flatness. At this time, Daniel has no desire to get away from the humdrum of life. To change the tone is status quo. Lillian changed jobs. She moved to a private high school to teach. She thought this would be the place where her dreams would begin again. Instead, she found a place where dreams were hidden. The students who should be vibrant are troubled that teachers who were supposed to teach were all incompetent assholes. On her first day here, Lillian saw the wildness of the students. It was a sunny afternoon. Lillian was passing by the gymnasium on her way to hand. In her report, the hormonal male students were in a frenzy with the sound of whistles. The boys made flirtatious gestures. They used it to attract Lillian's attention. Some boys took off their tops to reveal their sexy bodies. They tantalized Lillian. She came to the principal's office. They were holding their teachers' meeting. When she saw Lillian coming, the principal seated her to listen. It was the first meeting of the new semester. All the teachers had submitted a thick research report, but only one older woman handed in a single piece of paper. Her name was Mary. She was less than 5 years away from retirement. She was senior in rank and seniority. The principal was dissatisfied, but didn't say anything. The meeting ended in embarrassment. Afterward, the principal assigned Lillian to a class. She was the art teacher for the first year of middle school. The next day, Lillian, a writer, with her lesson plan. She planned to meet the students first, but before she could open the door, she heard a lot of noise in the classroom. Lillian hurriedly pushed her when she found 2 students fighting. What's more, there was a group of girls cheering for that scene. The fight was getting more and more intense. Lillian rushed forward to pull the battle, but she was a weak woman who could not do anything. She was almost pushed down. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Mary arrived in time to calm the drop. As a token of appreciation, Lillian invited Mary to lunch. They had a good conversation. Mary's usually indifferent expression had a surprisingly large smile on her face. This was a rare occurrence. After this, the two had established a friendship. In the days that followed, Lillian would often ask Mary for advice on how to be a qualified teacher. Each time, Mary would give her insights. This made Lillian very happy. Lillian invited Mary to her home on weekends. Mary lived alone for many years. She had no partner and no children. She didn't have many friends around her. She didn't refuse Lillian's offer before she left. Mary bought an exquisite dress. She also had her hair done. She had to put on her makeup several times before she was satisfied. It was clear that she was earnest about this party. But what she didn't expect was compared to her elaborate outfit. Lillian's family was a little more casual. They were dressed in baggy clothes. There was no sign that the house had been tidied up in advance. But what surprised Mary even more was that Lillian, who still looked like a girl, was married. She had 2 children. Her eldest daughter was now in junior high school, and her husband, Daniel, was very old. His hair was thinning, and his face was wrinkled. These 2 people don't look like a couple standing together. They were more like a father and daughter. All this disturbed Mary a little. Lillian was a beauty that no man should have. Let her have it. At this point, I want to say she doesn't seem like a nice person, and that's true. After dinner, Lillian took Mary into the studio. This is her most private place. Even her husband, Daniel, couldn't come in and out. Now that she has brought Mary, she considers her a good friend. In the dimly lit studio, Lillian slowly opens up. She tells Mary about the bad years, her husband's old age, her children's rebellion, and her years of loneliness and isolation, which had become a pain in her heart. Listening to Lillian's tears, Mary was pleased with herself, but outwardly, she pretended to be a caring sister. She listened carefully to Lillian's every word. After a long time, Lillian stopped talking. Mary also said goodbye when she got home in the evening. Mary couldn't wait to open her notebook. She wrote down everything that had happened today in her psychological world in her diary. At the end, she put a shiny gold star in the notebook. Notice this story is not ordinary. Only when she had a happy event would Mary take it out and paste it into the diary. And once the gold star was pasted all over the page, it meant that Mary was going to succeed in taking down an innocent person. Unfortunately, Lillian had no idea about this. In the following days, she continued to be close to Mary at the school party. Mary gave Lillian a special place, and she waited until the party was almost over. She couldn't wait for Lillian either. Mary quietly went to Lillian's class, but before she could open the door, she suddenly found Lillian in the classroom, making out with Mike, the boy who had fought with her last time. She looked through the glass. Mary's emotions were very mixed. She was jealous and a little excited at the same time. She thought about it for a long time. Mary didn't reveal them. She called Lillian's number when she got home. She agreed to meet her at the bar tomorrow, the next morning. Lillian arrived in a hurry when confronted with Mary's questioning. Lillian didn't hesitate. She explained everything that had happened between her and Mike. It turned out that after the chance meeting in the playground, Mike had fallen deeply in love with her. After a lot of pursuit, he succeeded in igniting the long-dormant fire in Lillian's heart. One is a young boy. The other is a beautiful woman. These two together, it was inevitable that they would have a healthy and beautiful relationship. Lillian knew it was wrong, but she couldn't give up the novelty of cheating. Mary reminds her that he's only 15 years old and a student at school. As your friend, I will not expose you and keep you in the dark. But the condition is that you immediately break off all inappropriate relations with him in response to Mary's kind offer. Lillian readily agreed to do so. The two decided to say goodbye to each other and left the bar. She sat in the car and looked at Lillian. Mary had a huge smile on her face when she had succeeded in her plight in the days that followed. Lillian avoided Mike until Christmas break. She didn't make out with Mike either. She thought that was the end of the story. But on Christmas Day, things changed. At New Year's Eve dinner, Lillian's house was full of people. All of her family was there. They all came to the party. Her mother-in-law had never been friendly to Lillian. She said to the crowd, "Lillian is beautiful and she has long legs, but she didn't like to talk to us." Hillbillies in the face of her mother-in-law's ridicule. Lillian was troubled. She was so depressed. She walked to the door with her garbage bag. Mike suddenly appeared behind her. He had come to deliver a Christmas present, an exquisite sand and gold necklace. He wasn't expensive, but he was loving. Lillian hesitated. She accepted Mike's kind offer. She looked at Mike's affectionate case. Lillian was touched. But then she suddenly thought of Mary. She was going to break up, but before she could see anything, Mike suddenly came closer to her. And now Lillian sinks again in front of the house. The two of them sublimated their love. Since then, the two have returned to the original line of affection. After several times in a row, Lillian felt guilty. She bought an expensive gift for Mary. Mary, who didn't know the truth, thought that Lillian's feelings for her were deepening. She was happy for several days, but that day, she couldn't be satisfied anymore. Her cat was sick. Her cat was not going to live long. The campus, her only companion until now, is in the midst of her sadness. Mary finds Lillian again to confess her sorrow. But at that moment, Lillian was very sexy and looked at her phone from time to time. She was distracted the whole time. Clearly, she had other things on her mind. Mary says goodbye. She was just about to walk out the door. Mary suddenly stopped in their tracks because she saw a strange sight. A young boy and a duck had suddenly tumbled into Lillian's yard at the same time. Lillian's cell phone rang. Mary instantly understood what had happened. She grabbed the phone and put it to a year. The teenager on the phone said, "I've been missing your warm sleep all morning." Yes, the teenager was Mike. Now that it was over, Mary was furious. She hears Lillian. "You don't really think he's in love with you, do you? He likes her body. Once his desires are satisfied, she will be abandoned mercilessly. I'm going to give you one last chance. You break off your relationship with him immediately in the face of Mary's threat." Lillian didn't hesitate. She went to Mike's house in the afternoon to break off her relationship with him. As soon as she entered the house, she realized that Mary was telling the truth. There was no truth in this seemingly affectionate young man's words. He had said that his father was a domestic abuser. His mother was a cancer survivor. But what Lillian saw was a happy family of 3. He did all this to gain sympathy and to get into Lillian's heart more easily. Lillian was in a terrible mood when she found out the truth. She called Mike downstairs anyway. She told Mary what she knew. She thought Mike would have some sense of responsibility as a man. But before she could say anything else, Mike took it upon himself to draw a line under her. and he said the words of desperation. After they said goodbye, Lillian was walking down the street with a heavy heart. She was seen by Mary, who was out shopping for groceries, after learning that Lillian and Mikey were over. Mary came forward to comfort her. Now that Mikey was no longer in the way, the bond between Mary and Lillian had grown stronger and stronger. Everything is going according to Mary's plan. Soon after Mary's cat died, she was devastated. She came to Lillian's house. She planned to call her to go and bury her kid. But at that moment, Lillian Stanley was planning to go to her son's play. They were going to be late. Time was of the essence. So, Lillian politely declined Mary's request. This was the logical thing to do. Mary disagreed. She got angry on the spot. She accused Lily of not appreciating friendship. She vents before leaving. When she returned home, Mary was alone with the body of her cat. She was unfortunate. Her heart was full of hate. She made a decision. She wanted to get back at Lillian. That night, she called her colleague Ryan over on the pretext of studying for a class. She suddenly told her about the scandal between Lillian and Mike. The result was predictable. It only took a day. The story spread around the school. The next night, Mike's mother found out about it. She found Lillian's house. She came straight at Lillian and hit her. Luckily, their husbands were able to stop her before it became a disaster. But for Lillian, the tragedy was beginning. After Michael's parents left, she was greeted by Daniel's extraordinary violence. She also became a morally bankrupt school teacher for the media for the rest of her life. Lillian hid in her studio. She only left the house when necessary. But just then, Mary came to her. She acted like a savior and asked Lillian to stay with her for a while. Lillian lent. Mary was finally by her side every day, looking at Lillian's sleeping face. Mary was so touched. It was a happiness she hadn't experienced in years. It was the sweetest time she had ever had. But the joy was short-lived. One dreary afternoon, Mary was out shopping for groceries. Lillian, who was home alone, suddenly saw a page of Mary's diary that she had left in the trash. This entry was about her. Then, Lillian searched for the diary like a madman. Looking at the diary, Mary's description of her in her psychological world. Lillian was utterly devastated when Mary came back from the grocery store. Lillian exploded. She slapped Mary twice, and then she went to the door with the diary in her arms. The reporters were all around her. Lillian was no longer afraid. She roared at the crowd like a rabid wolf. It was all her. It was all her. Finally, Danielle took Lillian home through the crowd, and Mary went to buy a new notebook. She slowly walked to the park and locked in a new target. Thanks for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more of these recaps.